now to Ivon Sampson, the immigration lawyer. Ivon, thank you for rejoining us. I know there's some technical issues there. Tell us whether you think this heroin dealer should be here in the UK.
Look, I sympathise with the public who absolutely, we don't want people like this living in the UK. However, the Secretary of State has strong powers to deport foreign nationals. It's there under the Borders Act. Anyone convicted of an offence which carries a sentence of more than 12 months has to be automatically deported. Now, our laws are subject to the laws, the treaty, Article 8 in particular, in this case, of the European Convention on Human Rights. So even if the Secretary of State wanted to remove somebody, she'd be subject to European law.
Yes, but we have lots of other countries that ignore that and do what they want in that regard. And you have the excuses hold on a second. We have the excuses that this dude is talking about, this heroin dealer, this heroin kingpin, talking about right to a family life, yet he's had affairs. He says that he'd be persecuted if he goes to Turkey, yet he's been there at least 8 times. This doesn't stack up.
Well, look, the courts look at the composite right. It's not just the rights of the individual, it's also the rights of family members, those who are settled here. And it's a balancing exercise. And I'm afraid when you have someone with a wife and a child who's been in the UK for more than 7 years, I've seen time and time again, the public's rights is out-trumped by those rights. The only way we can remove foreign criminals and give the power back to the Secretary of State is to come out the European Convention. So don't blame the law and don't blame the courts. Now, if you want to change the law, and I know
we are blaming the courts. We are blaming the courts in this example, Ivon, because we're in a situation where his excuses don't seem to stack up. He's talking about a right to family life, and you're talking about his fellow members of his family. I mean, do they want someone? Have they been asked? Do they want someone who has been a cheater, who has gone off? And I'm not standing in moral judgment of people who go off with other people, but I am standing in moral judgment of someone who is a heroin kingpin. And you know, the rights to the family life of his family, to me, don't matter.
Well, I'm not going to defend this individual. What I will defend is the evidence. And the evidence is that he's been here 10 years without offending. He has a wife, which
Well, he's been 10 years without being caught. I mean, he is a heroin kingpin. And the fact is that he's one of Britain's biggest drug dealers. He may not have necessarily had a conviction, but I don't think he's been sitting working in Tesco's for that time.
But Peter, I sympathise with you. As I said, the only way we can remove these people is if we come out the convention. Now, people like Richard Tyson, Nigel Farage are saying this. I never thought I'd support Suella Braverman. But you know what? I'm afraid if you want to remove foreign criminals, you won't be able to do that if they have settled family members in the UK. And in these circumstances, quite often you see the courts trumping the rights of the public against the rights of this family. So I'm afraid you're going to get more and more decisions like this.
But how can that be right? I mean, even within the European Convention on Human Rights, how can the human rights of this scumbag and his family trump the rights of people who he has caused a huge amount of misery to? I mean, the ECHR doesn't make sense in that regard, and we do have other countries that disregard those aspects and do what they want.
Well, if you're asking our country to disregard the rule of law, then yes, the courts can do that.
I'm not saying they should disregard the rule of law necessarily. I'm saying they should look to other countries and how they interact with the ECHR, which they don't seem to be doing.
Well, what they look to is the convention itself and the cases that have come before the courts. That's the precedents that have been set, and the court will be minded about that. And if he has strong family life in the UK, the court has said it would be unjustifiably harsh to expect his family members to live in, for this case, Turkey. And the courts are well within their rights to make that judgment.
Do the family members have to go if he gets deported? I don't think they do.
Well, they don't have to go, but they don't have to. But then you're going to break the family tie. So it's a proportionality assessment. Is it disproportionate to affect immigration control and to break those family ties?
Well, we have evidence. My beef is with the courts here, because we have evidence that he doesn't care about family life. He cares about family life when it comes to staying in the UK. He doesn't care about family life when it comes to cheating on his wife.
Well, look, you're focusing on this individual. And the court, as I said, look at the composite right of the family as a whole. And that's the balancing exercise.
But he's the criminal. I don't care about them. He's the criminal. There are lots of people who have a criminal in their family. The criminal goes to prison. Their family life is broken up as a result of that. Whether he's in prison in the UK or whether he's in prison in Turkey, does that make a difference?
Well, it does, because the case law is against you. Biye Kubet is the leading case on this issue. And what that case says, which the courts have to follow, that the family life is looked as a whole. They're looked as one single unit. And if another member in that unit is going to have unjustifiably harsh consequences, then I'm afraid you're going to get judgments like this. You
can see, Ivon, can't you, how people look at cases like this, and there are many cases like this, and just think, this is nonsense. We should just derogate or withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights. You can see how this gives a succor to the people who have that argument. You can see very clearly how there are people who believe this to be the case, and they see examples like this and just think, what is the point? I mean, this law just doesn't make sense to so many people.
Look, Peter, I agree with you. I sympathise. There's countries, like I spend a lot of time in the UAE, where I have a lot of clients, and in the UAE, if you commit an offence, you'll be deported within days. There are no rights of appeal. Foreign criminals are not accepted in the UAE, and the country has quite a right to remove them, and they do. And so if you want to go down that line, then, like you said, we've got to think about coming out the convention.
Okay, Ivon, thank you. That's Ivon Sampson there, an immigration lawyer. I mean, this just defies logic.